The hospice workers made arrangements for Jan's horses and dogs to visit her after she developed a terminal illness. It breaks my heart to hear what she said to her animal pals when she was eventually reunited with them. Jan was a charming little girl who had a grin on her face for everyone. But because she was more of an introvert, she only had one childhood pal. Celia was the name of this buddy. Jan was reserved, whereas Celia was gregarious and enjoyed having a good time. Together, these females accomplished a lot. They went horseback riding and engaged in indoor activities. Jan's lowest point was lifted when she received a horse as a present from this buddy. Both of these girls had loving parents who did all in their power to ensure their happiness, including planning lavish birthday celebrations. Jan first got to know Dennis at Celia's 18th birthday celebration. This man would grant his wife's final desire in a few decades. His method is both elegant and unsettling. Everyone had a great time during Celia's 18th birthday celebration. Jan, on the other hand, was content to watch her buddy dance and smile at the various gifts she was given. A truth or dare game was proposed just as the celebration was about to come to a conclusion. When it was time for Celia to choose a player for the game, she walked directly to Jan and dragged her into the center of the space. Celia dared Jan to kiss the sexiest guy here. "I understand that you have always desired this," Celia softly said into Jan's ear. Jan was really shy and afraid. How in the world did her buddy think she would kiss this weird guy in front of all of them? Just as she turned to retreat, everyone erupted in cries of, "Go, Jan! Go, Jan!" They were all not prepared to accept a no. Jan gave a heave and glanced about. There was one person in the throng who just didn't seem like the others. He just maintained his composure and kept his gaze locked on Jan, without yelling or screaming. "Him," murmured Jan, gesturing to the man. The guy merely looked into space for a few seconds. Jan was rather bashful and assumed the guy had rejected her, so she was shocked when he stood up and came over to talk to her. Everyone's encouragement caused the noise to grow really loud. Jan closed her eyes as he approached her. He then cupped her face, and she gave him a kiss, as though nothing else mattered. To this pair, everything felt as silent as the night, even though there was a lot of commotion in the room. After they broke up, the guy added, "That was my first kiss." Jan was shivering because it was so amazing. Jan was going to leave the party when someone grabbed her hands out of the blue. The man she kissed was the one. "What's your name?" he said in a low voice. "January, which is yours?" He responded, "I'm Dennis," and requested to have Jan's phone number. He promised to call when she punched in the number on his phone's keypad. Dennis didn't make a call until 3 days had passed. The two laughed and talked for a while on the phone. Dennis then asked Jan out on a date 2 weeks later. Later that night, Dennis texted Jan to say, "I want you to be my endless love." Jan received the text. "I can see how concerned you are by looking into your eyes. I swear, I will stop at nothing to make you smile." Of course, Dennis fulfilled his word in a manner that Jan could never have predicted. After that, the two began dating and were joined in marriage 4 years later. Celia married as well, and the couple shared a residence next door. Before long, Jan and Dennis had their children, and their house was quiet. They were both happy that they had selected each other every day. This couple became empty nesters around 30 years later. But Jan received a gift that brought life back into their house. Celia and her spouse paid Jan a visit on her 56th birthday. As night fell, Celia called in sick. Then, after a short while, she came back carrying a young horse. Jan started crying as soon as she spotted the horse. She had little trouble figuring out that Celia had acquired it for her. Before Celia remarked, "The first time we met was at a horse riding competition, and then we became neighbors, best friends, and sisters." She had no idea that it was a farewell present. "I adore you so much. I hope this horse will bring back wonderful memories of our time spent together after I'm gone." Later, Celia informed Jan that she was moving to Europe with her spouse. After a heartfelt farewell, Dennis pledged to take Celia's place. "I have no doubt that you will," Celia declared. "You are the best thing that has ever happened to her." Jan gave this horse the name Bob a few days later. Together, the two accomplished so much. They went swimming together. Jan braided his tail and mane, took him on rides around picturesque locations, and taught him a few skills. Dennis would often make fun of Jan's connection with Bob, implying that she was envious of their lovely closeness. Bob was so sick 9 years later that Jan feared she might lose him. Nevertheless, the horse survived in spite of all the odds. Regretfully, Jan was the next to become ill, though initially it wasn't too bad, so her family physician would frequently visit her home to provide care. She frequently recovered just to become ill again a few weeks later. It was during this difficult phase of Jan's life that her loving husband bought her 2 dogs, Monty and Rowley. These dogs kept Jan company even on days when she was very sickly. They still made her smile. Then, in 2020, Jan, now 68, went to the hospital with her husband for a checkup after a fainting episode. Sadly, that was the day their world turned upside down. Right there, the doctors diagnosed Jan with a terminal illness. They also said she had little time left and would have to be admitted to the hospital right away. Then the doctors gave the couple a few minutes to themselves. Dennis couldn't believe the woman who meant the entire world to him was dying. "I want you to persevere in supporting me." Dennis wept like a child and pleaded, "Promise me you will fight. Since you entered my life, my darling, I have experienced immense happiness. I have all I could possibly need in you, therefore I don't feel afraid to depart now. Tell me you'll be content, please." Jan wiped his tears and touched his cheek, but she did say, "I don't know if I would ever see Bob and the dogs again," right before Dennis departed. "Please give them my best wishes." They then bid each other farewell with a wave, and Jan was taken away by a nurse. Dennis was unable to visit Jan again for a while because of COVID-19 regulations, but he made the most of this opportunity to arrange a lovely surprise for his ailing wife. Dennis contacted the hospital to let them know he was thinking of doing something unique for his spouse. Sadly, the COVID-19 regulations caused his plea to be denied. Yet he persisted in contacting the hospital and didn't give up. Jan was eventually placed under hospice care to receive end-of-life treatment 4 weeks later. Here, family members could see their dying relatives, and the regulations were different. When Dennis revealed his intention to surprise Jan to the hospice staff, they fully supported him. That day, when the crew pushed Jan, who was bedridden, to the patio door, she was taken aback. The bewildered woman questioned, "What's happening here?" Her husband arrived at that very moment, carrying her pets. Jan noticed them instantly and let out a little cry of excitement. For the first time in weeks, her grin was bright and her eyes sparkled, but there was a larger surprise in store. "I am aware of how much your dogs were missed," Dennis said quietly. "I promised you I would do everything to make you happy." Dennis was still chatting when the employees who had been looking after Bob led him out into the courtyard as Jan gave her dogs hugs. Jan's mouth fell open when she spotted her favorite horse. Happy tears filled her eyes. "Look, here he is! Bob has arrived," she said. "Look at him!" gesturing to the horse as though he was invisible to others. They both couldn't contain their tears. They could all see she was delighted. Bob then stepped closer to Jan, giving her one more round of neck and lap kisses. It was obvious that they missed one another. Jan then said these really painful words to her animal friends. "I'm sorry. You won't see me anymore because I'll be leaving shortly. However, I'm taking all of our wonderful memories with me. Make me a promise. You will take care of Dennis, the love of my life, while I'm away." Jan responded, "Love him as much as I loved you." She didn't care anymore, even if she died the following evening. What counted was that she fought death while spending a special time with her pets, her horse, and her cherished husband. That was triumph to her.